Oh my god, what am I doing? Hi, welcome to Just Thinking Out Loud. My name is Desi-Rae. This story is a bit intense. I want to talk about Epstein and look a bit more at the bigger picture and not necessarily the immediate politics that seem to be surrounding it. I'm going to start off by talking about who Epstein is and what he's done, and then why what he's done is sort of important, and then I will give you a perspective that I would like you to walk away with having watched this video. So Epstein is a multimillionaire money manager who has ties with a lot of powerful politicians and Hollywood people, so not just politics, but people who are very high profile. And he's also a convicted sex offender. Particularly, he engages in pedophilic acts with young girls. I think the youngest number I saw was 13. And specifically, what he does is invite young girls into his home for massages, and then he proceeds to masturbate or have intercourse with them. And he also gets help from the people who work with him and other women as well. He was convicted in 2008, and he pled guilty to 2 charges: solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors for prostitution. But he only served 13 months of an 18-month sentence where he was in a private wing of a Palm Beach County jail, and he was able to leave for very long periods of time in order to do quote-unquote work. He only had to serve a small amount of time, not even really in prison, because he cooperated with the authorities. I'm going to put a lot of links in the description so that you can research everything yourself. There are even FBI documents that you can look at. Even though he was convicted in 2008, then he was living his life, and he apparently has a private island in the Caribbean, which is where he does most of these activities. And there have been lots of different people have been accused based on some court documents that were recently unsealed, including Prince Andrew and also the Clintons, Bill Clinton specifically, and also Trump. However, the Trump thing is mostly coming from the media, because even though there's one report from a woman who was saying that Trump never flirted with her, even though he was there, and then there are also reports that he actually defriended Epstein, and also stopped him from visiting Mar-a-Lago, which is Trump's place. So I don't really want to get into the actual politics of it, which you will see afterwards. And I do think that people are trying to make it about putting this image of pedophilia because they now know that, yes, this really happened, and they have more evidence, and putting it with, associating it with the side that they don't like. I'm specifically not trying to do that, and I'll make the case a bit more later, but more focus on the fact that these kinds of events happen all the time, not just with the powerful elite people out there, but also on a smaller scale. But those people like Epstein have more resources to carry out what they're doing on a larger scale, but it does start a lot smaller than that. And I made another video when the Weinstein thing was going on where I said something very similar, which is it's very easy to look out at powerful people when these scandals arise, which they're going to keep happening over and over again, because humanity has a lot of darkness to it, but it also happens on a much smaller scale. So more recently, he went to jail and was going to trial after more accusations were coming out, and he was only in prison for a short amount of time. And last week he was found dead, and the cause is maybe suicide. There's a lot of speculation about it. I don't know exactly why he died. I personally think that, there's something more going on than just he killed himself, as they're saying, but that's not verifiable, and the story is still coming out, and maybe they will change things or have some sort of evidence that leads to a conclusive decision on what actually occurred. So he was found dead, and people were saying that it's probably because they were unsealing all these documents and they didn't want to criminalize other high-profile people. The biggest suspicion is the Clintons, and a couple of weeks ago, there were reports of people like Obama and other very important, famous people unfollowing the Clintons and sort of removing and distancing themselves from them. And so I think that's very suspicious, and maybe there's something going on there. But I don't want to get into that. So that's what happened. He was found dead, and now everyone is talking about who was involved and connected with him. What I think about all of this is we should use this incident as a reminder, because it's just a reminder, that what you see is not usually the full truth of the matter when it comes to the media and politics. A lot of the people who are associated with Epstein are famous, and they put on an air, especially the politicians, of being virtuous, because that's what attracts people to them, and that's how most people want to feel like they're good. And a lot of people do actually try to be good, and so we want people to represent us who hold the values that we have. So there were some politicians and celebrities who were involved with Epstein, and it's obvious that many people were involved in the sexual trafficking of these underage girls. And this is something that happens every couple of years. You hear something about some pedophile ring busted. There was something with the BBC and a very famous singer who was also known for charitable acts, and him doing like decades of abuse. There was a scandal in 2011 that was called Operation Rescue, and at that time that was the biggest pedophile bust, and it was worked on by governmental agencies around the world, and that was mostly focused on young boys having relations with older men. So that's another thing. I don't want this to be a gender issue. The point is that these things go on all the time. They're happening right now, and you're probably going to hear something like this come up in a year, in a couple months. It's going to keep happening. And then obviously also there was a whole Weinstein. I'm not really a fan of the Me Too movement just because it's focused on girls, and I think this shouldn't be focused on gender. But yeah, this stuff happens all the time. And what you see is not the full truth of the matter. When you see people talking on the TV or having philanthropic foundations, it doesn't mean that what they say is what's going on. And I understand that you probably already know this, but this is a good reminder. This is just a good reminder, and it's probably happening right now. And I wanted to hone in a little bit more on the politicians thing, because politicians, I see a lot of politics as people bribing, people with a lot of power, bribing the masses to give them what they want in order to have power. So when someone tells you that they're going to do something that you would like, and usually it's for your own benefit, you're thinking of yourself and people that you care about and not necessarily the whole of society, it's good to keep in mind that you are helping. I'm not saying that you're, not you necessarily, my viewers, but you in general. Nobody's responsible for the evil acts except for the people who are actually doing them. But I just want people to keep in mind that you may be helping to put people in power who do certain things, and it's not your fault that you can't see exactly who is good and who is bad. That's very hard to tell from the outside. It's just speculation in a lot of ways. But just keep in mind that this has always been happening. I'm sure that there are good people out there. There are good celebrities, good famous people, but a lot of them aren't. And this is something that's just going to keep happening. And is happening. And I just want to put it into your brain. Lots of people are being abused right now. And lots of people in power are doing these acts right now. It's happening right now. And it's not just the politicians, but it's also on a smaller scale. And these politicians just have the ability to take it a bit larger. And in the same way, people can use their power and resources to do good things also, but on a larger scale. So what I want you to take away from this video is to be conscious and to be aware. Just be aware. This is just a reminder. You as an individual are only responsible for yourself and for your specific sphere of influence. But there is a lot going on in the background. How did these girls get into this situation? What Epstein was doing and what a lot of people who abuse others do is they go after people who fit the profile of their kind of prey. So I would call his behavior predatory, even if it wasn't occurring with underage girls. And something to think about is that the age of consent is 18 in the US, but it's a lot younger in a lot of other places in the world. And this can happen to someone even when they're older than and not minors. And specifically, he was going after girls who were not in good situations. They wanted to have a better life. There was one of them, he was helping them pay for schooling. She thought he was going to help her pay for schooling. That was like the one page I ended up finding in the FBI dockets. And also, they usually were from broken homes. And sexual trafficking also sometimes involves the parents or the family that these people are coming from. A specific thing that was pointed out in his case was that some of the victims also lured in other victims as well. And he only offered them, I'm saying only, but he offered them like $200, $300, like $1,000, up to $1,000 per sexual act. And I was looking at statistics and numbers for how much it costs to get a slave in modern times. And you hear about these, what we consider nowadays, because we never used to, awful things like humanity on a whole. And you're like, they're not even being paid that much for it. It's really strange to think about. That the value of human life or human dignity can be so low in the eyes of both the person receiving the money and or pimping out the other person and the person giving it. Another thing to keep in mind, I want to point out and really jab home this gender thing. The majority of sexual trafficking victims are women and children. However, the majority of people represented in facilitating the process are also women. And I'm not just saying that, I put a link in there. I took a quote from one of these links. Women play an important role as perpetrators of human trafficking. Women tend to make up a larger share of persons convicted for human trafficking offenses than for other forms of crime. In some countries, women represent more than half of persons convicted for trafficking persons. And that's human trafficking, not just sexual trafficking. And human trafficking also usually involves boys being trafficked to be workers, like as soldiers or porters, and then also some sexual trafficking as well. That's just something to keep in mind when you hear. I watched a very brief video by another YouTuber, and they were talking about the patriarchy. And yes, men tend to accumulate more power and wealth, and it's not just because of the patriarchy. There are reasons behind that, and I don't want to get into that in this video. But women are also very much involved in these kinds of things. Boys are also victims sometimes, even though they're not the majority. It's mostly women are victims. And it's not just about gender. I hate every time these things come up, they make it about usually something against men, but it's a people doing things issue, not just a gender issue. And these things don't come out of nowhere. People don't just like come from a nice, happy, healthy home. Well, that sometimes that happens too, but usually there's a whole interlocking web of events behind it. So just remember that, and remember that you possibly may be able to influence that. I also put some links in my description talking about sexual trafficking in terms of how to recognize the signs and like what you can do about it. So I just want to ask you to try to be a good person, and just take these incidents and this incident as a reminder of what's continually going on in the world. Don't just look at the dark side. There's also good going on, and powerful people can also do good things. And work on yourself, work on your shadows, and try to not take part in evil doing as much as is reasonable to you, as much as you understand it. I try to do that. I'm not perfect. There are things that I do and have done that I wish I could do better, but I'm just trying to make the right decision in the moment. And that's really what I wanted to say today in light of all of these events. I don't know if he really killed himself or not, but I don't really like the focus on the politicization of it, it's inevitable. So my perspective is just my perspective. I just wanted to put a different thought stream out there than just what is the evidence, what are the facts, because this is one drop in a much larger ocean, and this is just one incident, and these things just crop up every now and again. This kind of incident is not a reason to bash one group of people. It is a reason to condemn certain actions and maybe try to understand the human psyche, why people do what they do, why people are drawn to power, and try to work on what it means to be human, because a lot of these people don't just do bad things. They also do things that help people, and it's not just black and white. It's double-sided. Evil doesn't exist on one side of the political spectrum, and it's just easier to see it on things and people that we externalize, like we don't jive or align with them. It's a lot easier to see it there, and it exists there, but not only there. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for watching my video or listening to my audio version, podcast version of this. I kind of wanted to somehow wrap this content into something more digestible, because it's an uncomfortable topic and I can't stop myself from being in a serious state about it. But I hope that doesn't make it hard for you to understand what I'm saying. Just be aware and conscious of what you do. Please subscribe if you like my content, and leave a comment, give a like, share my video. Don't forget to donate at justthinkingoutloud.tv/donate. I will talk to you soon. Have a good day. Bye.